As you probably know, October is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and to celebrate, Infosec is giving away a free month of its Infosec Skills platform. This is a subscription-based skills training platform for cybersecurity experts. If you'd like to learn more, please go to infosecinstitute.com/podcast, and don't forget to claim your free offer before October 31st. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cyberwork with Infosec podcast. Each week, I sit down with a different industry thought leader to discuss the latest cybersecurity trends, as well as those trends, how those trends are affecting the work of Infosec professionals, as well as tips for those trying to break in or move up the ladder in the cybersecurity industry. I'd just like to break out to note for a moment that because of, in honor of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, Infosec is giving away a month free of its Infosec Skills subscription-based training platform. If you go to infosecinstitute.com/podcast, you can find out more about this. Today's guest, Atif Mushtaq, is the CEO of SlashNext and has been fighting cybercrime for more than 15 years. His story is a series of dream jobs for people in the cybersecurity industry. He was previously a security scientist and system architect at FireEye, where he was one of the main architects in the company's core malware detection technology. Atif has worked with law enforcement agencies to take down some of the world's largest malware networks, such as Rustak, Shrewsbury, Pushto, and Grum botnets. In his research, he found infinite threats originating in the web layer and discovered that cybercriminals were launching browser-based phishing attacks through numerous sources. This led Atif to launch SlashNext, which combats those advanced, fast-paced threats. He has worked just about every job you can name, from entry-level bug zapper to founding of his own company. So today we are going to ask him about some of the highlights and lowlights along the way and how to make the big jumps in both the knowledge and the job level. Atif, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
So since your interest in computers and security likely goes back a long way, let's start at the beginning. When was the first time you remember being interested in computers? And from there, when did you decide to focus specifically on issues around security?
Well, my interest around computer goes back to in 90s. I mean, my first love was mathematics. And as a matter of fact, one of the main reason I became interested in computer was the practical application of mathematical concept. So I got my degree in mathematics in year 1998. Mm-hmm. And at that time, it was more of a theoretical math. And I was looking for a platform that can provide me an opportunity to convert some of these mathematical model that I was working on into a pure applications. Right? Mm-hmm. And it was simply not possible without computers. Even those computers were slow, but it was nowhere possible to convert those theories into any type of application. So this is where I thought, okay, you know what, this is the way. If I really have to work on anything cutting edge, I need some practical tool, and the computer was the thing to go with.
Right. So has the cybersecurity landscape changed procedurally or directionally since you first got involved way back when?
Of course. I think we are into the fourth generation landscape. When I started became involved in security, it was the era where people were developing malware or the viruses for the fun purposes. So it was kind of a 1997 to 2004. It was the fun part. Mm-hmm. People were developing stuff. They did not have any financial motives or any big, I would say, intellectual property theft and all that. All they wanted to have some fun, right? So right. For 5 years, it was for fun, right? And then we came into the second generation, and that was about for profit malware. So we started to see quite a bit of botnets where people thought, okay, you know what, there's no money in developing viruses for fun. Why don't we embed some kind of data stealing payload into our malware, and we can make some money out of that. So I would say second era was from 2004 to 2007 time frame. Mm-hmm. And then we enter into the third generation where it became targeted attack, APT attacks, where nation state started to say, oh, you know what, I mean, they can use it as a weapon, right? The internet is broad, accessible, so why not take advantage of that? An interesting thing is that in the first three phases, from the fun for profit to the intellectual property, the most common method used by hackers were malware. All of them were using malware, for different purposes, right? And now I believe we are entering into the fourth generation threat landscape, and that is centered around for profit and the intellectual property. But the main difference is that instead of using malware, the bad guys have started to use phishing instead.
Okay, so you think there's a switch from phishing to malware? Is there a particular reason for that?
It's a switch from malware to phishing, and I think it's very difficult to have a malware undetected with the current technologies. So
Right.
anti-malware technologies really struggle from 1995 to 2010 or so, and then they finally became reasonably good enough that they made their life quite difficult. So this is the thought. Okay, it took around 15 years to develop set of technology that can combat malware. So now if we switch to phishing, then there's an opportunity for us for the next 15 years.
Right. You have this whole sort of social engineering aspect that malware, anti-malware technology can't help you with.
That's right.
Letting them through. So let's start a little bit. The point of the podcast is cyber work is we talk about sort of career journeys and how to jump from one career to the next. So, based on some of what you told me in the highlights of your bio, you've been taking on huge projects for a long time, whether it was with FireEye, law enforcement, or your own company. But everyone has to start at the beginning. So I'm wondering what your beginning was. What kind of job titles did you have along the way? Where did you sort of get the tools that were in your tool belt to get you where you are now?
Well, when I started getting into the security stuff, I don't think there were even titles around 99, 98 time frame, right? So it was just based on what problem you're trying to solve, right? I started my career as a R&D engineer, right? And it was a very generic title. I mean, there was nothing like all these fancy title back in 2000, right?
Right.
These were the early days, and people were still trying to make sense out of what's really happening around. So my first 2-3 titles pretty boring, just like a software engineer, right? But of course, I was focused on security.
Yes.
The more formal titles started to appear around 2006, 2007 timeframe. The last job I had was at FireEye, and my title there was senior staff scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And right there, I jumped into founder and CEO.
Right. Now, so for someone who wants a career like yours, what are some sort of career or experiential milestones that they absolutely need to have on their resume to be considered?
So you're talking specifically about security?
Yeah, and just general skills or background or certifications, like what do you need to see in a person to sort of continue sort of promoting them? Like what experiences should they have? They should be good at this or that, or have a background or have worked at certain types of organizations, things like that.
Well, I think it should start with focus. I mean, cybersecurity is huge, and there's nothing like a generic cybersecurity professional. You need to focus on one area. So I think the very first step for you is to pick the area that you want to focus on. And there are dozen and dozen of different, there's penetration testing, there's malware, there's phishing, there's compliance, right? So first step is to find what you really like doing. And after that, I think there's certain areas where there's a lot of knowledge base that exist. For example, on the penetration testing compliance, where definitely courses can help. Unfortunately, when it comes to malware and the cutting edge threats that bad guys are launching and rethinking every day, you need to have some hand-on experience.
Yes.
I'll give you an example, right? I mean, we are seeing phishing attack that nobody will speak about or talk about in the next 1 year. And suddenly in 2020, someone will write an article, okay, this is the new type of phishing attack that is coming. Well, we observed that about a year ago, right? So if you really want to go into this hand-to-hand combat for phishing, malware, and the active combat with hackers,
yes.
I think you can't learn it from any certification. You need to have hand-on experience, go to dark web, try to learn from hackers themselves instead of learn from books.
Oh, so you recommend jumping into the dark web and actually see what's swimming around down there?
That's the only way. Learn from the bad guys, because no professor or a scientist is going to tell you how fishes are going to behave in the next 6 months. You have to go there, get your hands dirty, and find it yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Any other tips in that regard? Like, we get a lot of people on who listen to the show who feel kind of stuck in where they're at now. Like, is there, something that they can do today that will sort of, help them to start moving their skills or their experiences in this direction?
I think there's so much information available. I would say it all starts with hard work. I can't think of a reason that if I'm interested in one area of security and I can't find enough people who can help me out, or
Mm-hmm.
enough material on internet that I can learn from, right? So in my opinion, just find one thing that you really like and then stick to it, and then plenty of help over on internet, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Get on Google and get started. So now that we've talked a little bit about career strategies, let's have a little fun and get to some of your personal history. Can you tell us about your time taking down malware networks like Roostock and others? Were you fighting these networks when law enforcement contacted you, or were you kind of going to war yourself? And what types of strategies and tactics did you use to take them out?
Sure. My first encounter, direct encounter with bad guys, started around 2008, and first encounter was without law enforcement help, right? So I can touch base on that.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2008, the spam botnets were really, really very popular, and they were pumping billions of spam messages in your inbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
And every day there will be a new headline. Okay, there's a Series B botnet is pumping 2.2 billion messages. There's another one that is pumping 1.7 billion, and everybody had an understanding that okay, all of these are different gangs and different botnets that who are trying to compete with each other, right? So I became interested in that thing. Okay, why there are 5 or 6 different botnet, and what exactly they're trying to do. And I started to write series of blogs on these botnets early 2008. And during my research, I found that most of these guys who look like apparent rival gangs are using same infrastructure to host their spam. And I started to wonder, if these are rivals, then why are they using the same data centers? And it's amazing is that the data center they were using was located in San Jose, Silicon Valley.
Oh, yeah.
And eventually I found that world's 90% spam is being controlled from San Jose. There's one tower in San Jose where there's a data center called Makolo that is being leased by a Russian national. And if you take down that data center, you're going to kill worldwide spam by 90% in one day. And this is exactly we did at FARI. With the help of my colleague Alex Leinstein, we went after these guys and we just took down one data center, and worldwide spam was down 90% in a single day.
Wow.
And in that process, there was no law enforcement involved at all.
Yeah, they were probably not even aware of the fact that they could get involved in something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you need to have enough understanding of these botnets. So, or maybe there was no focus from law enforcement side, right? So we took it down with the help of some friends, different ORGs, Spam House, and all that. And then the law enforcement got involved when we tried to take down a botnet called Osdog. It was another big spam botnet. We took it down, and and apparently, I mean, it was just another takedown. We took it down. All the spam was killed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting things happened when FBI report came next year, and they actually told us a very interesting story. And that story was that in 2011, the guys from FARA, naming me, Atif Mushtaq, was trying to take down the Osdog botnet, and FBI was aware of this guy who's running this botnet, and he was visiting Las Vegas for a car show. And they were about to catch this guy, and on the exact same moment, I took down his botnet, and he had to flee US in a rush. And so FBI had an opportunity to arrest this guy, but they missed due to me. I mean, I didn't really plan for that, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, that guy made a mistake again, and he came, visited Las Vegas again in 2012. And at that time, FBI arrested that, and they completed their report, right? And then that guy got in prison for 5 years. So at that time, we provided them all the threat intelligence, all the proof, just to show that, okay, this is indeed the guy who owns all the assets in that US data center that was controlling pretty much the worldwide spam. So he got convicted. He served his prison 5 years. I think he's out of jail now and back to Russia.
So what, I mean, spam went down for a time by 90%, I imagine, but like, did other sort of botnets and other organizations kind of fill in the gap fairly quickly? You know, I don't I'm trying to think of a time when like suddenly there wasn't a lot of spam in my inbox, but you know, probably there was.
It came back, but it never came back to the historical 2008 level. As a matter of fact, the 2008 was the peak time. It never recovered from there. It never ever.
Wow.
So it went down 90%, then came back. Then we kept on taking it down. Then Microsoft actually jumped in and they took a couple of botnets down as well. So historically, the worldwide spam is very low if you compare it with 2008.
To where it was.
It's nowhere. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I guess you mentioned this a little bit before, but have, you know, these types of malware networks persisted? But it sounds like basically, rather than malware, now we're talking about sort of phishing attacks. So, like, how did that? You mentioned that that the tech finally sort of squashed malware in certain ways, but like, when did the sort of switch to phishing as a primary attack vector come?
That's a very good question. So I started to see this switch while I was at FARA, and around 2011 and 2012 timeframe. And around 2014, when I left FARA, it was almost 50-50. But the amazing thing is that nobody was talking about that switch at that time. 2014 was the time where you see a lot of next-gen anti-malware companies started to emerge. So there was something very interesting happening. I was sitting at FARA, which is a cutting-edge anti-malware company. I am seeing that, okay, a lot of attacks are moving to phishing. And at the same time, I'm seeing a lot of new anti-malware technology company who are kind of impressed by FARA's success and want to replace it. And I was thinking that, okay, this trend is really changing. This is we are entering into the fourth generation threat landscape, right? And so when I left FARA, I thought, you know what, I mean, right now it's 50-50, and even people are not talking about that. So what if this problem is going to be this big, almost as big as malware, then there needs to be a purpose-built anti-phishing company. There's 60 plus dedicated anti-malware company in the world, right?
Right.
There must be a purpose-built anti-phishing company, at least 10 of them, and there was none. All were narrowly focused on email-based phishing, just a small subset of the overall phishing. So this is how the SlashNext was born, on an assumption that, okay, this problem is going to go big. So everything that we ever did for malware, we have to repeat it for phishing as well. And that's exactly, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
And if you see in 2019, this is exactly what happened right now, based on third-party stats and our stats. 95% of the threats that an online user is facing today is phishing, and the malware is just 5% of it.
Right. Okay.
So the trend has completely changed.
So what? I guess this is a good opportunity to talk about SlashNext, but also what does a anti-phishing company look like in the way, like, we know how anti-malware works. We know like what you're getting when you're getting an anti-malware package, but what are the components of an anti-phishing tactic or campaign or tool or whatever?
Well, phishing is the psychological manipulation of an online user, right? And typically hackers exploit three human emotions, right? I mean, the fear, trust, and reward. Fear is that there might be a page that would say, okay, you know what, there are viruses on your computer, you need to call this 1-800 number. Someone is using your your scare tactics to get you something stupid, right? Sometimes people use trust. For example, someone can send you an email pretending to be your CEO, and because you trust your CEO, you're gonna do something on that guy's behalf, right? Or you send a phishing link that is a fake replica of Microsoft, and now you trust Microsoft, hence you're gonna do whatever they're gonna say. And the third emotion is the reward. We are seeing a lot of phishing attacks that are just exploiting the human greed element, where someone is promising you a free iPhone and asking you for your information. So if you really want to design a good anti-phishing and anti-social engineering solution, you need to have a computer software that can understand these three human emotions. Unless you have a system that can understand these human emotions, you won't be able to develop an anti-phishing solution. So again, understanding how hackers are exploiting those fears, how they approach that thing, how they set the bait, and then try to understand that just like a human would do. For example, if someone asks you to transfer $50,000 to my bank account, there's no malware in it, there's no JavaScript in it, right? So now as a human, I'm pretty smart online user, so I'll say, okay, I'm not going to give you $50,000, but a non-technical user would, right? So now if you want to develop a software, then that software must understand what does this transfer me $50,000 mean. So you need to give that software an ability to read different languages and understand the context out of that. At the same,
so we're not talking specifically about like a security awareness platform. You're specifically talking about a sort of online tool that can sort of read the language of a phishing email and sort of kind of like the way like on Facebook now they have, if they show you an article, they'll show you like a fact-checked version of the article. Like, is this something that is basically showing you like this could be spam because of this specific language or this specific link and stuff like that?
Exactly that. So yeah, if you want to develop an automated system, it needs to think like a human. Right. Otherwise, it won't be able to catch phishing.
Okay. Oh, very interesting. So, wow, that's really cool. I don't think I was aware of that particular angle on social engineering. We do, security awareness training here and get people to, stop instinctively clicking on the free pizza coupon and stuff. But it's good to know that there's also this sort of electronic component that's also sort of reading incoming messages and looking at incoming fake invoices and whatnot, and keeping you, abreast of that. So, so speaking again about career work, like what you do now, what are some of the downsides to the types of work you do? Since your job looks like kind of a dream job to many security folks, what are some of the, it's 2 a.m. and I'm still dealing with this nonsense aspects of the work that they should know about as well before they jump in?
So security as a professional and as a business is a tricky one, right? Because it's driven by what bad guys are doing. For example, I have a great anti-phishing system, right? And suddenly one day I find that the bad guys are changing their tactics. Market is exactly the same thing. Demand is there. Everything is there. The bad guys, that's a hidden element, is changing their tactics. Now I must act upon that, right? Mm-hmm. So as a security professional, you need to anticipate change pretty quickly, because unlike many other fields that is driven by market, how consumers are reacting to it, security is driven by bad guys. One day they're going to say, okay, we're going to attack user like this, and you should be ready for that. I think that's one of the biggest challenge for a security professional, right? Mm-hmm. You're dealing with very fast moving hackers who are making millions of dollars and who can do everything possible in order to make those millions of dollars. So you have one assumption today. In 1 month, I have to change maybe everything in order to catch those bad guys. So the element of surprise, just like a normal warfare, is really there. And that, I think, is the biggest challenge to run a security company and at the same time becoming a security professional or a software developer who's coding software solution that requirements can change anytime. You're not taking requirements from customers. You're taking requirements from bad guys, and they don't care about you, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing similar things like that with just in general with training and what they're calling the sort of the half-life of cybersecurity knowledge, that after something like 2 years, like 50% of the knowledge you had is already becoming obsolete just because of the fast pace of technology and what have you. So were there any particularly surprising attack types that you saw out in the wild in your years as either a malware zapper or as a phishing person? Is there any particular attack vector or malware strategy that made you kind of shake your head and say, wow, that's pretty impressive?
Well, there are a lot of them, right? I think people speak about changing threat landscape, and people think that it's the process of years. We are seeing threat landscape changing every month. I've seen some phishing attack that I never even thought are possible, and I started to seeing them about a couple of months ago, right? I'll give you an example, right? I started to see phishing attack when you click on a phishing email, they ask for a captcha,
Oh,
right? So what happens that what they're trying to do is to fool the automated system, right? So they know that a normal user would solve that captcha and you'll eventually land onto the phishing page, right? But how about an email scanning engine, right? How they gonna break the captcha to see the phishing page, right? So it was a very clever attempt to fool the automated engines by scanning their URLs, because you have to break the captcha before you can even visit that website. And they were using Google Captcha, the picture-based stuff, which is almost impossible to break, right? So that was pretty surprising attack for us, and it was pretty clear that the bad guys are watching security companies very, very closely, and they exactly know how they're trying to catch them, and they're coming up with the evasion techniques. So that was a kind of a wow moment. I also recently saw a multi-stage attack where you get a phishing email, you click on a link, and they ask you a series of benign looking questions. So you have to move your mouse, you have to enter something through your keyboard, and then eventually you see the phishing page. So now they're assuming that a normal user would be able to answer all these benign looking questions and the gestures, but an automated system will never be able to solve that roadblocks in order to reach this thing. So it was completely shock for me to actually see that kind of stuff is happening, where you need to be exactly like a human to reach to that phishing page so that you can detect it.
So, I mean, that almost sounds like they're sort of like playing up, our inherent desire for sort of gamified things where you get 2 or 3 steps where you say, oh, that's fun. I can answer these easy questions. And the next thing you know, you're just kind of in that mode of, okay, what's next? And then the next thing it gives you is a phishing page.
Exactly.
Wow. So in your bio, you noted that in your research, you found, quote, infinite threats originating in the web layer, and that cyber criminals were launching browser-based phishing attacks, which sounds a lot like we were talking about here, through numerous sources, noting that growing problems of HTML attacks presented by web-based phishing and malicious browser extensions. So does that sort of connect to this, or is that sort of a parallel track?
Actually, that's a very interesting trend. And I think, I hate to say it, but I think the Google is responsible for that. So what happened that about 6-7 years ago, Google thought that they can turn their browser into a platform. So instead of people downloading application on Microsoft Windows, they can download these extensions, and these are the web apps on the browser, so that they don't have to go to the operating system. And they wanted to make Chrome OS is the popular platform instead of the Microsoft Windows or OS X, right? So they put a huge R&D effort and the marketing effort on convincing developers, instead of writing the desktop application, start writing the browser extensions, right? And these are the unconventional applications that run within browser only, and they offer quite a bit of functionality, right? And now if you see, there are more than 200,000 browser extension on the Chrome store, right?
Yes.
So this is where the bad guys saw an opportunity. They knew that there are a lot of antivirus technologies running at the operating system level, looking for exes, binaries, and they said, you know what, all the confidential stuff is happening within browser anyway, right? So what if we start releasing malware in form of browser extensions? Advantage is that, first of all, we have a great vantage point. We can see exactly what user is doing within browser by developing an extension. And at the same time, the antivirus are looking for bad binaries on the operating system. They're not looking for web apps that are running within browser.
Yes.
So this is what we found, that people have started using phishing attack to spread these browser extensions. People simply download and install an online radio, right? And that online radio is actually offering you streaming services, but at the same time, they're scrapping your screen. So again, there's a legitimate functionality in those extensions, but there's a hidden business going at the background. And so far, looks like that the anti-malware technology that we develop over the year to combat conventional malware running on the operating system, they're completely ineffective against these attacks. And it's all started happening about a couple of years ago. So it's going to take a while for the anti-malware technologies to even develop a technology that can even ability to see the behavior of these web apps so that they can stop it.
Okay, so that sort of answered my next question. So it's still down the road. Like there's not really a step-by-step process right now of identifying and shutting down these types of browser-based attacks.
We actually, SlashNext offers a solution. The way we offer it, we stop it at the very, very beginning, at the time while they are setting the bait to install these extensions. So we track all these malicious advertisement, and by the time they set the bait to download this browser extension, we stop that attack. So again, we are stopping it before it gets installed on your browser, and it's a completely preemptive approach as compared to the antivirus guys who will let that thing install in the system before they can stop it. We are stopping it at the stage number one.
Yes.
I think that is, in my opinion, is the best way to stop these attacks.
Okay, so I mean, we've been talking a lot about sort of technical solutions to phishing attacks and browser extensions and so forth. So but there's, as we've also mentioned, that by its nature, that social engineering plays a part in in phishing attacks. So if you could put your social security awareness hat on for a moment, what are there any sort of up to the minute strategies? I mean, we all know, don't put your password where if something looks wrong, if the text looks garbled, or the URL looks weird. But are there any new, these things are happening faster and changing constantly. Are there any new sort of security awareness things that people should be involved with or think about or be watching out for?
Well, to be really frank, it's tough. Over the years, people have developed enough training modules for email-based phishing, but nowadays you're seeing phishing coming from your LinkedIn, from your WhatsApp, from Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even think that when it comes to security awareness, people are aware of phishing hitting them from other communication medium as much as they know about email. So in my opinion, even if you have a fully trained email phishing trained user, he's gonna struggle to find a phishing ad out of 1,000 ad that person sees in a single day, right? So there's a limit to the security awareness and how much you can give. I mean, okay, so now you have a training module for email-based phishing that everyone is offering, right? Okay, now you need to have a social media, and there's so much information on the web right now, to be really frank, including fake news, legitimate information. So our attention span is so, I would say, less, that it's very hard to make a very I would say informed decision every time you click on a thing.
Yeah, you get worn down after a while.
You won't know. So I think it's tough, and especially with the fact that the way the bad guys are coming, I think it's tough. I mean, I won't say that I'm against and security awareness, but I think it has its clear limitations. And on top of that, we humans are not rational all the time. I mean, look, I'm talking to you right now. I'm pretty fresh this morning, right? How about you send me a phishing links 2 in the morning while I'm almost half dead, and I have all the training in the world, but I'm not even thinking straight right now, right? So we are not in a stable mind condition all the time, right? So this is how the bad guys get in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess adding to that, as we wrap up today, since you're on the front lines of phishing attacks and tactics, what are some other malicious tactics that you see on the horizon beyond what's here now? What are some of the things you think you're going to be fighting in 2020 and beyond in this regard?
In terms of end user security and the online threats, I think this phishing is going to grow more, in my opinion, and the malware trend is going to be downwards.
Yes.
I believe that I'm going to see more rise in the non-email based phishing, especially on the advertisement and the social media side. People are spending quite a lot of time on these social media sites, and I think the unconventional infection vectors like advertisements, search engines, WhatsApp, Skype on the mobile devices, I think that's going to be an upward trend. And at the same time, I think the phishing attacks will be much, much harder to detect in coming years. Bad guys have actually, they know that they focused on phishing for a couple of years. Nobody was talking about that. Now everybody's talking about phishing. Hence, all these security companies are jumping to develop some kind of technology. And this is where the race condition has begun now. So it'll be much harder to catch fish, and it'll be much harder for an end user to spot fish.
And so what are some of the tactics and so forth that SlashNext is working on in this regard, that, without revealing any trade secrets, of course?
Yes, I think, again, the focus of the company has been since the very beginning that, okay, if you have to stop fish, we have to think like a well-trained end user. A trained end user has been historically successful in catching phishing attacks, just like you are, right?
Right.
So all we keep on thinking that, okay, how a well-educated human user would detect it, and a lot of it has to do with by seeing things and reading things, right? So this is where we're going to focus on. We're adding new natural language processing modules. We are making our algorithm ability to see things much better, right? So that they can start analyzing, or they see the email and the web page exactly like a human user would do, and they can do it in a faster fashion. And that, in my opinion, is the way to go. Just try to catch fish just like a human do, right?
Right. Right. Okay. So if people want to know more about Atif Mushtaq or SlashNext, where can they go online?
Well, the obvious thing is slashnext.com.
Okay.
You can go visit our website. You can learn about the system, and at the same time, quite a bit about the threat landscape. Our blog is pretty good. I mean, we keep on talking about some latest trends, and I think you should be a regular visitor of our blogs if you really want to learn about new phishing trends. And at any given stage, you have info@slashnext.com. Just send us an email or just give us a call.
Sounds great. Atif, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
And thank you all for listening and watching. If you enjoyed today's video, you can find many more on our YouTube page. Just go to youtube.com and type in Cyberwork with Infosec to check out our collection of tutorials, interviews, and past webinars. If you'd rather have us in your ears during your workday, all of our videos are also available as audio podcasts. Just search Cyberwork with Infosec in your favorite podcast catcher of choice. And to receive a free month of our Infosec Skills subscription-based platform in honor of National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, go to infosecinstitute.com/podcast or click the link in the description. Thank you once again to Atif Mushtaq and SlashNext, and thank you all for watching and listening. We'll speak to you next week.